Close your eyes for a moment. It is a Tuesday night in London. The year is 1720. Outside, the air is thick with the smell of coal smoke and the salty, muddy scent of the Thames River. It's a dirty city, a loud city, but inside this room, it is perfectly quiet. You are standing in the study of a man named Isaac Newton. There is no electricity here. The only light comes from a single candle on a heavy wooden desk. The light bounces off piles of old yellowed paper. If you looked closely at those papers, you would see things that changed the world. You'd see the math that explained how the moon stays in the sky. You'd see drawings of how light works. But Newton isn't looking at the stars tonight. He is 77 years old. His hair is long and white. He is the most famous man alive. People think he is more than a man. They think he has the mind of a god. He is the master of the mint, which means he is the boss of all the money in England. He spends his days catching people who make fake coins and sending them to prison. He is a man of rules. He is a man of facts. But tonight, Newton is doing something strange. He is staring at a small piece of paper, a stock certificate. It represents a dream called the South Sea Company. Newton is about to make a choice. It's a choice that will prove that even if you can weigh the entire earth, you can't weigh the greed inside a human heart.
To understand why a genius like Newton got confused, we have to leave his quiet room and go outside, into the streets of London. Imagine a place called Exchange Alley. It's a narrow, stone street filled with coffee houses. Back then, coffee houses weren't like the ones we have today. They were loud, smoky, and crowded. They were the internet of 1720. If you wanted to know the news, you went there. You'd hear the clatter of horse hooves on the stones. You'd hear men shouting over the sound of clinking porcelain cups. You'd smell the bitter, burnt scent of cheap coffee and the heavy smell of tobacco. In these rooms, people weren't talking about the weather. They were talking about getting rich. There was a new company in town, the South Sea Company. The people running it told amazing stories. They told everyone that they had a deal to trade gold and silk in South America. They promised that if you gave them your money today, you would be a millionaire tomorrow. It didn't matter if you were a rich lord or a person who cleaned the streets. Everyone was talking about it. The hype was everywhere. It was like a fever that took over the whole city. People stopped working their real jobs because they thought they could just buy stock and sit back while the money rolled in. Newton heard these stories every single day. He tried to ignore them. He was a scientist. He knew that you can't get something for nothing. But the noise was getting louder.
Who was Isaac Newton, really? He wasn't a normal guy. He was a man of obsession. When Newton got interested in something, he forgot the rest of the world existed. There are stories that he would sometimes forget to eat for an entire day because he was staring at a math problem. He once spent months trying to learn alchemy, which is the old fake science of trying to turn lead into gold. He wanted to find the universal secret. He wanted to know the rules that God used to build the universe. Because he was so smart, Newton believed that the world was like a giant machine, a clock. He believed that if you had enough data, you could predict anything. He predicted how the tides would move. He predicted where the planets would be in 10 years. He even predicted how a cannonball would fly through the air. He felt safe when things had rules. But the stock market in 1720 didn't have any rules. It was driven by something Newton didn't understand: human emotion. He looked at his neighbors in London. He saw them buying new carriages and expensive clothes with the money they made from the South Sea Company. At first, Newton was calm. He bought a few shares, watched them double in price, and then he did the smart thing. He sold them. He walked away with a profit of about 7,000 pounds. That's a huge amount of money, enough to live like a king for the rest of his life. He had won. He had used his logic, made his money, and got out. He should have been happy. But as he sat in his quiet study, looking out the window at the people still shouting in the streets, he realized something that hurt his pride. The people who stayed in the market were now twice as rich as him. The fools were winning, and the genius was being left behind. And for Isaac Newton, being lesser than a fool was a weight he couldn't carry.
Imagine you are Newton. You are sitting in your chair and you're looking at your bank account. You have 7,000 pounds. That's more than enough. But every time you walk down the street, you see people who weren't as smart as him, people who didn't understand math, buying mansions, carriages, and drinking expensive wine. Newton started to feel a very dangerous emotion. Today, we call it FOMO, fear of missing out. Newton's brain started to do something very dangerous. He started to doubt his own brilliance. He thought, maybe I sold too early. Maybe the rules of the universe have changed. This is the moment when the internal mindset shifts. Even a genius can be convinced that 2 + 2 = 5 if everyone around him is screaming it. By the summer of 1720, the stock price was screaming toward the moon. It hit 800 pounds, then 900 pounds. It felt like it would never stop. In August, Newton couldn't take it anymore. He didn't just buy a few shares. He took almost every penny he had ever earned, decades of hard work, his inheritance, his savings, and he threw it all back into the South Sea Company. He bought at nearly 1,000 pounds per share. Think about that. He bought at the very highest point. He was like a man jumping onto a train just as it was about to run out of track. The genius had finally let his emotions win. He wasn't a scientist anymore. He was just another person in the crowd, hoping for a miracle.
In September 1720, the air in London changed. The shouting in the coffee houses didn't sound like cheering anymore. It sounded like fear. Someone, somewhere, decided to sell. Then another person sold. Suddenly, everyone realized the South Sea dream was a lie. There was no gold, there were no spices. There was only a pile of paper and a lot of debt. The stock price didn't just go down, it collapsed. It fell like a stone dropped from a tower. Newton watched as his wealth vanished in days. 1,000 pounds, 800 pounds, 500 pounds, 200 pounds. He didn't sell. Why? Because he was paralyzed. When you are that smart, it is very hard to admit you made a mistake. He kept thinking, it has to go back up. My math says it should go back up. But the market doesn't care about your math. The market only cares about how scared people are. By the time the dust settled, Newton had lost around 20,000 pounds. To give you an idea of how much that is, a normal worker back then earned about 20 pounds in a year. He had lost 1,000 years' worth of a normal man's salary. The smartest man in the world was suddenly a very expensive failure.
After the crash, Newton changed. He didn't talk about it. He didn't write about it in his scientific journals. He was deeply ashamed. He had spent his whole life proving that the universe followed logical laws, that everything could be calculated. But he couldn't calculate his own greed. He spent the rest of his life in a bit of a dark mood whenever money came up. He famously told his friends, "I can calculate the motions of the heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people." That is a heavy sentence. It's a confession. He was admitting that his genius had a limit. He could understand the stars, which are millions of miles away, but he couldn't understand the person sitting right next to him in a coffee house. He realized that wealth isn't just a number on a page. Wealth is a psychological game. And in that game, his high IQ was actually his biggest weakness. He thought he was too smart to be fooled. And that's exactly why he was fooled so easily. This is the mindset shift we need to talk about. Being smart and being wise are two different things. Newton was smart, but he wasn't wise enough to control his envy. He let his emotions drive the car,
and he drove it off a cliff.
So why are we talking about a man who lived 300 years ago? Because right now, as you listen to this, the world is full of South Sea companies. They just have different names. Maybe it's a new crypto coin. Maybe it's an AI startup. Maybe it's a get-rich-quick scheme on social media. The technology changes, but the mindset shift is the same. The lesson of Isaac Newton is this: your intelligence will not save you from your emotions. In fact, the smarter you think you are, the more likely you are to ignore the warning signs. Newton lost a fortune because he compared his middle to someone else's top. He saw others getting rich, and he felt small. If you want to survive the risks of the future, you have to do what Newton couldn't. You have to be okay with being bored while others are excited. You have to be okay with people thinking you're missing out. Because at the end of the day, it's better to be a slow genius with your money in your pocket than a fast genius with nothing but a story about how you almost made it. Thank you for listening. If this story made you think differently about risk, stay tuned. Next time, we'll look at another moment in history where a single decision changed everything.